Welcome to the 20th election in American history. It was held on Tuesday, November 8, 1864. In the midst of the Civil War between the Union and the Confederacy, incumbent 16th President Abraham Lincoln tried his best to keep the Union. But in April 1861, in the Battle of Fort Sumter, the Civil War started. America was about to fight its bloodiest war ever in its history, and Lincoln would soon call for the volunteers to help the war effort, and around 620,000 Americans would die fighting for their country. Tragically for Abraham Lincoln, his son Willie would die, dying at the young age of 11 years old due to typhoid fever. Still, even with all of this, Lincoln would give his best to try to reunite the Union. After the Confederate victories in the First Battle of Bull Run alongside the Second Battle of Bull Run early in the war, the Union desperately needed a victory ASAP, or else the unthinkable might occur. And on September 17, 1862, they had their opportunity. In the crucial Battle of Antietam, the Union Army led by General George McClellan attacked Confederate General Robert E. Lee, but in a twist of luck for the Union, a couple of days ago, after the Union had moved to a campground that the Confederacy had just left, Corporal Mitchell found Special Order 191 laying on the grass nearby, detailing extremely all the battle plans that Robert E. Lee had written. But even with all of this, Lee almost won the battle, having to retreat at the end after a hard-fought fight, with the Union embarrassingly barely winning. This was due to General McClellan's outright ignorance and cowardliness. And after hearing of this, President Lincoln, as soon as possible, fired McClellan. With this Confederate loss, Lincoln had a big statement to make, announcing the Emancipation Proclamation that declared all slaves in the Confederacy to be free. And after centuries of horror, many African Americans had a bright light at the end of the tunnel. Not long after the capture of Vicksburg by the Union occurred, led by General Ulysses Grant, the Union, with this key victory, were able to cut the Confederacy in half, crippling them. And finally, the Battle of Gettysburg was a crushing defeat for Robert E. Lee, with this being the deadliest battle in the war. This was the last key turning point that saw the Confederacy's chances diminish extensively, and the probability of an intervention by a foreign power was now virtually zero. Not long after, Lincoln would give his famous speech, the Gettysburg Address, talking about freedom and equality for all. For the election, the National Union nominee for president was, of course, incumbent President Abraham Lincoln, while for vice president, there was Hannibal Hamlin, Lincoln's vice president, and there was Democrat and National Unionist Andrew Johnson, military governor of Tennessee. Bear in mind, the National Union was the Republican Party, alongside other factions like the pro-war Democrats. And to show national unity, the party nominated Lincoln and Andrew Johnson as his running mate, while the Democrats' main nominee for president was George McClellan, general whom Lincoln had fired after Antietam, while George Pendleton, a representative from Ohio, became his running mate. The Democrats nominated this ticket with the hope that there would be a spoiler candidate for Lincoln, and there was the Radical Democracy Party, formed out of Republicans who saw Lincoln as too moderate, with their nominee being 1856 Republican nominee John C. Fremont, and John Cochran, a former representative from New York, as his running mate. But Fremont, at the last moment, dropped out and endorsed Lincoln, having nightmares of what a McClellan presidency could look like. And the winner was Abraham Lincoln won, staying as the 16th president in American history and being the first president since Andrew Jackson to win re-election. Lincoln won in a landslide with 212 electoral votes, winning 55.02% of the vote, and Andrew Johnson became the 16th vice president in American history. George McClellan only got 21 electoral votes, with 44.96% of the vote. This election saw many Americans vote, even during the midst of the Civil War. Lincoln would win easily as well because of Sherman's march to the sea being a big success, while in the Senate the Republicans won, winning 37 out of the 50 seats, 12 over the threshold. For the House, the Republicans also won, winning 133 seats, 36 over the threshold. Colfax from Indiana became Speaker after Grow lost re-election in a historic feat. Lincoln took his oath of office on Saturday, March 4th, 1865, in the Capitol. Lincoln had guided the nation during one of its darkest times, during the bloodiest war in American history, which was finally nearing its end, and the Union, with many sacrifices and lives, would be preserved, and thus the 20th election in American history came to an end. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.